get gifts from Santa. Not a single diamond or pearl. I've dated all Atlanta. I'm such a naughty girl. I sat on Santa's right knee. I'm getting cold this year, so I'll get an elf to buy me a case of grain belt beer. I've been a naughty girl.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Left Hemispheres podcast. This is episode 9.5. It's Tuesday, December 18th. I'm Jack. Let me explain what happened. If you listened to our last episode, we had Martin S. Pribble on, and we had a really good time, but we ended up not talking about a lot of the stuff we wanted to talk about by the time Martin had to go. So, since we were recording on a Friday night, unlike our usual schedule to accommodate Martin being in Australia, we just kind of kept going because we didn't have anywhere to be. So Steve, Adam, and I talked through a whole lot of other stuff that we meant to get to and just didn't really have time to. So I figured, since I've already got everything recorded, we may as well just cut it up and put it in as a bonus show. But we'll get to that in a minute. First, a couple announcements about the show. Turns out we decided we like recording on Friday nights, so our schedule is going to change a little bit. From now on, we're going to record on Fridays, and the show will go up late Sunday night, so it'll be there early Monday morning. I suppose you noticed we didn't have our regular intro music. I figured with Christmas being right around the corner, we'd mix things up a little bit. That was actually from a theater troupe called Don't Hug Me from their Christmas Carol. They're a group out of California. Pretty good. I liked it. I thought it was fun. I've got another one for you on the back end of the show that you might enjoy. That's a little weirder. And we got those courtesy of Music Alley, the PodSafe Music Network. There'll be links in the show notes for both of them. Check them out. Also, before we get into the rest of the discussion from Friday, seeing that Christmas is right around the corner here, I just wanted to take a minute, since I had to do this intro anyway, to talk about something that occurred to me while I was putting this cut together. The holiday season can be weird for a lot of atheists. I don't know what your situation is, but there are a lot of non-theists who have been estranged from their families and don't necessarily have anyone to hang around with at Christmas. Maybe you moved away, maybe you're in a new town, you don't know what's going on. And I just wanted to kind of come up with a list of some sort of cool things to do if you don't have anyone to spend your Christmas with, because you have to take off of work, and if everyone else is doing stuff with their families, you really don't have anything to do with yourself. So if you don't have a good support network of other non-theists or friends or, people to spend time with, Christmas can be a pretty big bummer. But if you're in the US, as much as we talk about how everything shuts down at Christmas, it really doesn't, especially if you're in a major city. If you're in a small town, it's kind of tough. Get a good book, hole up, do what you're going to do, or take a day trip to your nearest metropolis, because that's really where you're going to find stuff that's actually open. But there are places, because as much as we talk about, how America is inundated by Christian influence, there are still a lot of people in similar situations. Most of them are theists also, but still similar situations nonetheless. Jewish people, Muslims, Buddhists, running the gambit of people looking for something to do on Christmas. And America being America, the free market is glad to cater to them on Christmas Day when everyone else is home with their families and not going out. So, little advice for spending Christmas by yourself with nobody else around. There's a common Jewish stereotype about them eating Chinese food on Christmas, and really, I've always thought that was a really cool thing, because it is these two cultures that don't celebrate Christmas kind of coming together and doing their own little thing together. Now, I'm not certain, but I'm willing to bet that if you live in a metropolis with the right distribution, you'll probably be able to find a few halal restaurants open too, if you want to give that a shot. So take the opportunity to go out and maybe try some food you normally don't get a chance to eat. Or for that matter, it wouldn't even occur to you to go and hunt down any other day of the year. Also, movie theaters, a lot of the time, are open to accommodate people who don't celebrate Christmas. I know that this year there's a new Les Miserables movie opening up on Christmas Day. So if you're into that kind of thing, you might want to go check that out. If you're not, that's fine. The movie theaters are still showing all the other movies. Go see The Hobbit. Go see something. I mean, Hobbit kills 3 hours of your day. Have a Lord of the Rings marathon if you want. Go nuts. Depending on where you live, if you're in a warmer climate, like I know down here in Arizona for me, my zoo and aquarium are open Christmas Day, and you can always go hang out there and, check out animals, which is awesome way to spend time. And the crowds are so much smaller, so it's a good time. If you're into gambling, I know a lot of casinos stay open Christmas Day. All in all, if you want to sit at home on Christmas, you are welcome to it. I know a lot of people appreciate the chance to have a little me time, and that's cool. But if you're feeling lonely and you need something to do, there are things out there to do. And hey, you never know. If you're there, there's a good chance that there are other people like you there, and you might make some new friends. So I say that if you don't celebrate Christmas, you don't have anyone to celebrate Christmas with, take the opportunity to get out and see some things you haven't seen before. If you're a civically minded person, I'm sure that you could go down to just about any soup kitchen or homeless shelter and they'd be glad for the help. Not only would you be doing some good there, but you'd probably give somebody else who would be working that shift the opportunity to be out and seeing people that they need to see. So if you're into that kind of thing, it could be a really friendly gesture from an atheist to them to let them have their holiday. And that kind of goodwill could go a long way in kind of helping combat the stigma against our community that causes the kind of alienation that has people spending time by themselves on the holidays anyway. So, yeah, I think that's essentially my point. Go out, do something, have fun. There's lots of things out there to do. This is America. Stuff does not close. So, take advantage of the day off and have some me time if you don't have anyone to spend it with. And of course, all this stuff could work just as well if you do have people to spend your holidays with and you're still not doing the Christmas thing. Take advantage, go out, do stuff. It's a good time. Anyway, we're going to move into the actual show part of the bonus show now. I'm just going to say happy holiday from us here at Left Hemispheres because our next recording is on the 28th, so that episode should be up before New Year's, and we'll have a chance to wish you Happy New Year's then. As usual, if you have any questions, comments, want to send us possible show topics or things you want to hear brought up on the show, feel free to email us at lefthemispheres@gmail.com. You can get us on Facebook, Twitter at Left Hemispheres. We're on Google+. You know the routine. You know where to find us. Anyway, from all of us at Left Hemispheres, me, Steve, Adam, Nick, we'd just like to say have a happy solstice season, and we'll see you on the other side of the holiday. Wait, Adam, are you on an iPhone?
Yeah.
You're in a minority here, Nick. So
I don't fucking care. I'm in a minority.
Minority.
I'm a minority. A minority. It's okay.
Whatever, man. I'm a left-handed black atheist.
What?
That's right. Recognize. I really wanted to talk about the church is forced to conduct gay weddings. So those.
Yeah, I had a couple of things I wanted to point out about that article.
Okay, well, go ahead.
Will churches be forced to conduct gay weddings? Yeah, the article is basically pointing out the difference between, pretty much any other country, especially one in Europe and America, where it's just not going to happen that they'll be forced to conduct a gay wedding.
Right.
But the type of quote in here that really just kind of made my blood boil was, we have to create exemptions to civil rights laws for religious groups.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was sort of an extraordinary statement that was just pretty much uttered as a matter of fact. I'm not sure if it was if they were aware of what they were saying when they typed that. They don't really give too much of an indication that they were. But I find that to be an extraordinary statement, that we have to give exemptions to civil rights laws for religious groups. I just think it's illustrative of religious groups.
I think it's
not
really...
civil rights. I think it shows where religious groups are in the factors of human rights.
I think it's about progression. as a culture and as a society. That if there's a steady movement, and you can see, and we were talking about this in the last podcast, that there's a general progression in modern society, really to honor the civil rights of everyone. But that's one of those talking points that the religious right uses.
Yeah, as the article says, it's just even the people stating this generally know it's not factual. However, they use it as a scare tactic for the parishioners.
And imagine for a second, imagine being the gay couple who wants to get married, who's choosing a church. Would you want a church who despises you to perform your wedding? Of course not. Why on earth would anyone want to try to get married in that kind of like a hostile environment? Like that's
it's going to be few and far between somebody that wants to be like. I could see someone doing it as an activist position.
Sure.
But we're talking, that's few and far between. Most people just want the day to not be conflicting.
I honestly remain thoroughly convinced that for a large number of conservatives, that the gay marriage thing to them is less about what people do and a lot more about the federal benefits that come along with marriage and what they could see happening even if people aren't gay. Like, I can think of a lot of scenarios where two straight same-sex people would get married for to take advantage of various benefits,
Yeah, I can see that.
I could certainly see, two elderly widows marrying each other so they could share,
health benefits
and pensions and shit. Yeah.
See, I'm thinking more along the lines of the mysterious, the gay agenda. The people thinking that that this actually exists. That there's gay people that are like, and that are having like those communist meetings or like the old union meetings where they're in the basement of a church somewhere and they're saying, all right, like, this is what we're going to do. We're all going to go to the church that everybody hates us, and we're going to force them to marry us because that'll really piss them off. Like, you know what I mean? Like the every gay person is an activist.
And then when they're not looking, stick a dick up their ass.
That'll teach them.
Yeah. But it's part of that whole ideology that it's a behavior, that it's an action as opposed to an orientation, so that it's just something that you do.
All right, let's move on from the gay weddings, and this whole religious discrimination and religious privilege thing are kind of together. There's a lot of links here, but I don't know if we need to be going through everything. Monday was the Human Rights Day, so several different organizations released statistics on various human rights violations, and a lot of it was religious. And the Freedom of Thought 2012 report, which is a global report on discrimination against humanists, atheists, and non-religious, was also released by an international humanist organization, the IHEU, which is the International Humanist and Ethical Union. I believe it's a conglomerate of about 40 different groups worldwide. Basically, they were showing that atheists, agnostics, and the non-religious in general, or how they're discriminated against in different scenarios across the world. I mean, obviously, there's like 7 countries where you can be executed for being an atheist. There's another several, I don't know if it's like a half dozen or another dozen where you can be arrested for being an apostate. And, it goes on, and it even describes the discrimination that American atheists are subjected to here in the United States just by simply being godless. That you're considered unpatriotic, immoral, the whole gamut, everything nothing that surprises us, as far as an accusation. And as interesting as this is, you still have to sit back and be like, we got it pretty fucking good here.
Yeah.
I really, really would not want to live.
Well, I mean, we have it good in terms of there's nothing inherent in the system that is oppressive.
Right.
I mean, it's a cultural shunning. It's not the most you can say about it. I mean, we can't be sent to jail for it. There's no criminal charges involved.
Right. It's all very subtle.
There's no government mandated tithing,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
It's a lot like racism, actually.
Yeah.
Like modern racism, where
Yeah.
it's, a lot of it is
Subtle
subversive and
institutionalization of
right.
minority or discrimination against the minority. And I also included another link here. I originally saw both of these topics, or this topic, a couple different links from Religion Clause, which is a great blog, by the way, just for like legality stuff having to do with religion. But it's not just atheists. The FBI released its 2011 hate crimes data or data, and there's like a 19.8% motivated by an anti-religious bias, and that's running the gamut. There's over 1,200 incidents motivated by religious bias. The most were against Jews, and then the next was anti-Islamic, anti-Catholic, anti-Protestant, and then at the bottom of the list is anti-atheist or agnostic. Now, granted, these are different than discrimination. This is hate crime.
Right.
So, I think probably by sheer numbers, we fare sort of well on that. Anyway, to wrap up the discrimination part of this before we get into the privilege, it's not just, as I was saying, it's not just atheist bias. The actual hate crime data, there's only 4 incidents in 2011 that could be attributed to that. But, again, it just goes to show that any religiously motivated bias, think about the way that's phrased. It's motivated because of religion. You don't hate a religious group for any other reason than religion, right?
Right.
Or is that logic flawed? Can you hate a religious group? I mean,
Well,
I guess
no, because you could be
atheist, but
that's what I was about to say. You could be an anti-theist,
right.
and I mean that's we're so often accused of being that, even though sometimes that is accurate.
However, this is real data, and I'm sure you could dive into these 2011 hate crime statistics by the FBI, which if somebody is industrious enough that is listening to us, want to dive in there and try to see who committed these acts, which would also presumably be in the report, or at least as much as they know.
Right.
I would be shocked if there's a single incident, and this isn't any kind of smarmy, holier-than-thou attitude on no pun intended, on an atheist's part, but I would be shocked if any of these anti-religious hate crimes were conducted by an atheist against a religious group.
Right.
There's 771 of these are anti-Jewish. Find me one that isn't conducted by a Christian or a Muslim or another religious group. I mean, this is what they do. I mean, in the extreme, of course. These are thankfully not more prevalent.
Well, your basic look at the prison population. There's a disproportionate number of atheists or non-believers even in the prison population compared to the low number of atheists or non-believers that are in the actual civilian population.
There's a high number of believers versus non-religious.
There are fewer atheists in the prison system than in the general population.
Exactly.
I'm looking through the archives right now because I know we have a post on this.
Yes, we're more than one probably.
But
I know we've gone over those numbers before.
So it stands to reason that the perpetrators of hate crimes probably, and again, this is a speculation, but it stands to reason that the perpetrators of hate crimes are going to be much more likely to be believers of some type, because that's how it works. I mean, if you think about any type of hate crime, any type of out-group aggression, it's usually done by a majority toward a minority. And when you have the ultimate minority of what is the non-belief population of America? I forget what it is, but it's low.
Well, it depends on how you ask it.
Again, whether it's is it non-belief, is it atheist, is it agnostic?
Yeah. What is it? Probably between 5 and I don't know. I've heard it was between 5 and 16. I don't believe the high end at all.
The high end includes non-religious, which doesn't necessarily mean doesn't believe in God.
And that is wrong as well, because there's plenty of people that believe and don't report.
Sure.
So I tend to generally accept the low number because those are people that are out, and that's kind of what matters.
Yeah. Especially for things like this.
Yes. Anyway, by the way, Federal Bureau of Prisons statistics on religious affiliations of inmates. This is from a 1997 study, so it's a bit dated, but I can't imagine it's changed much. Atheists comprise 0.2%. 0.2%. Not 2%. 0.2.
Right.
Again, that's out, atheists. Who knows? But you can't, from that, extrapolate some massive majority.
Now,
So
there's a
it's
lot of other factors that
Sure.
fall into that. I mean, like the disproportionate African American presence in prisons, and African Americans being generally more religious
And under
group in
Protestant.
America.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
buffers those numbers in a weird way. I mean,
Sure, but that's why I said no matter how you shake these numbers, it's not going to increase the atheist number.
yeah.
No matter what you do with everything above atheist at 0.2 and above, it's not going to make the atheist number somehow suddenly jump up to some significant number. I mean, if I ran like a statistical analysis on this, it would be not significant.
Right.
Right. But I'm just saying that we're
If I
not
ran a
trying
chi-square.
we're not trying to directly draw a correlation between
Sure, yeah.
religion and your tendency to commit
No,
crimes.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this was originally a post from a while back in response to a Christian billboard, an Answers in Genesis billboard, actually, that shows a picture of a young male pointing a gun at the viewer, and it says, "If God doesn't matter to him, do you?" Which is obviously a scare tactic, about atheists. Atheists don't have that God has no place in their life, so therefore neither do you, because atheists are immoral.
Or because we're nihilists.
Well, whatever, and this was in a response to that billboard, as far as, look, that's total bullshit. No matter how you shake these numbers, you're more likely to get shot by a believer, like a 79.6% chance. If you're going to be shot by somebody, it's most likely not an atheist.
It seems to me that the first thing to respond as an atheist is, well, I can see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lends a lot of credibility on the empathy
Sure.
thing if I know that you're really there.
I'll have to throw this in the show notes so people can see the statistics and the source. And this actually has quite a few comments that went through it too.
Yeah, I was remembering that it sparked a bit of conversation about the
Yeah, I think a troll showed up.
Yeah, which is always fun.
So let's move on to religious privilege. You think?
Yeah. This Christian privilege in the U.S. reinforces prejudice. Is this the study from the Texas school system thing, or is this a different one? I didn't read this. So.
A lot of this was actually in response to a lot of these discrimination statistics. That's why I put these two like one after the other,
Mm-hmm.
and so like there's a whole bunch of overlap here. Like the Rick Warren article also is in response to this stuff up top. These articles have more to do with obviously privilege, but Christian reactions where they're constantly saying atheists are bullies for picking on Christianity when they don't understand what the argument is. Like, for instance, I don't give a flying fuck if someone tells me Merry Christmas. I will say either Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays right back at them. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But they feel the fact that I might say Happy Holidays in lieu of Merry Christmas is an affront. And that's a privileged position. They don't expect that because they have an expectation that they are the majority and that the majority rules.
I actually overheard this the other day.
In so many different ways. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I actually overheard this the other day. Somebody said Happy Holidays, and the person next to them was like, damn it, say Merry Christmas. And I was just like,
really?
Yeah.
Even fucking...
and I was like, it's the end of December. There's multiple holidays happening right now. Like, I might not see you until after New Year's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
which is, when I was a kid, that's how I always took that. Oh, they mean Christmas and New Year's. Fine.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, again, we're all from the same basic neighborhood.
Yeah.
The same corner of Pennsylvania. And growing up, Happy Holidays was because of really mainly Christmas and New Year's being 1 week apart. And you
Right.
could even include Thanksgiving into that.
Sure.
If you weren't going to see him for a while, yeah.
Yeah. It didn't even dawn on me that there was any other meaning other than the fact that you were saying Happy Holidays because there's multiple fucking holidays.
Right, and then I think when I got old enough to recognize that there was Hanukkah at that same general time, and I just thought it was inclusive, which
Yeah.
which to me translated into just fucking good manners,
Yeah.
because you don't know who you're talking to, and it's just a polite thing to say in case they happen to not be a person who celebrates Christmas. Like, and I remember a Jewish person saying to me "Merry Christmas," and then having the wherewithal to say, "Oh, Happy Hanukkah." And like, what a great interaction that was.
Yeah.
Because that's just what it was. He was a Jewish person who recognized that I was not Jewish, and he said "Merry Christmas" to me because my Christmas was going to be merry. At least that's what he was wishing. And I
Yes.
said, "Hey, you know what? I hope your Hanukkah's happy." It's just fucking manners.
Exactly.
Like, that's it. There's nothing else to it. And to think that this is somehow an affront
war.
to anything.
Well, it's
Other
a war,
than-
Adam. It's a
Yeah,
war on
it's-
Christmas.
It's a war on grammar. It's a war on fucking lexicon.
It is.
I don't have a problem with any of this. I don't understand why people think, that it's such a big fucking deal. You just greet somebody, say something nice, and move the fuck on.
I think it's part of the caricature. I think that it's the
Well, it's
I
a
hate
lie.
that. Well, sure, and I hate to say this is what they think, because you know what, I'm not one of them.
Yeah,
But-
stick your figure out when you say that, like Bill O'Reilly. We point.
Yeah, yeah, really.
This
but-
is what they think.
But
Sorry.
it seems like the caricature of the angry atheist is that they want everything remotely religious to be removed, like just stripped from culture, which is ridiculous. Because because it's ubiquitous, and it's just a waste of time to exert all the energy trying
And
to
it's
strip
also-
it from the culture.
You know what? It's not my goddamn job.
No,
Pun intended.
Frankly, Christmas is fun.
I
I
love
like
Christmas.
buying presents and wrapping shit and
I don't
getting together with everybody. It's nice.
care. I honestly so don't care about this war that they claim to have.
No, the only thing we get up in arms about is using taxpayer money on religious shit.
And
You know what?
really
I'm not
is.
even that. I don't even care about a tree.
No,
I'm more
Not at all.
concerned with like a nativity and whatnot
Yeah.
being government property. And it's not even for the Christmas incident, if you will. It's more of the precedent.
Oh, wait. I promised Marlis that I would use this phrase, celestial date rape. the culmination of a celestial date rape.
that's fucking
No means no,
fantastic.
God.
All I'm saying, God sneaks into a teenager's room at night and knocks her up while she's asleep. That's date rape.
That's fucked up.
In all 50 states.
Well, a woman's body has waves. So
Especially
maybe,
when they're a pure virgin. The whole thing was just silly pants.
so maybe it wasn't a legitimate celestial date.
This humor is dated and yet doesn't get old.
No, it never does.
It's just too absurd. But Rick Warren, that I just want to say fat fuck, so I will. That fat fuck, Rick Warren, has actually, in one of his many bloviated speeches, the religious liberty is the civil rights issue of the next decade, because the creeping secularism and government intruding upon, religion's freedom, which again is just a scare tactic, horseshit argument.
Wait, just to interject. Who's the guy who said that it was like the Holocaust? Was that Pat Robertson? One of those fuckers.
Yeah, it was. I think it was.
said that secularism is like the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah.
Now, what's like the Holocaust? The Holocaust.
Right. Yes, that's right.
It's kind of the worst thing that ever happened.
And
Wow, Justin
it
Bieber.
irritates me. as a non-Jew,
I thought you were going to say, well, Stalin, which would have also been an acceptable answer.
As a non-Jew, I'm offended by how often the Holocaust is brought up
Yeah.
for other inane shit.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Like, there's plenty of times where I'm like, really? You're invoking that?
Yeah.
That's some strong shit, you know?
Imagine being, and then there are still living people who were in concentration camps.
Yeah.
Imagine how their skin must crawl whenever Hitler is mentioned about, the president or, fucking Papa John's pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
How often?
Yeah, on both sides. Because people
or,
were comparing Bush to Hitler, too, which drove me fucking crazy at the time, by the way, everybody.
Or a fucking elementary school teacher. You know what I mean? Who's strict with the kids, who's a Hitler. Like, it's the worst person ever. Ever. And how often it's just tossed around as just this, it's a Goodwin's Law?
Godwin,
Better.
Yeah.
It must be horrendous to actually have experienced something related to, the most heinous crimes of the 20th century and have that be the example, the metaphor or simile that's used for everything that we don't like.
Yeah, I really wanted to get into this religious privilege topic, but I don't know how much we want to. Because it's one of those topics where it's either going to piss people off or they're going to get it. The topic of privilege, and as a straight white male with blonde hair and blue eyes, I think I get it.
You're actually not capable. It's written in your DNA. Sorry, man.
This isn't now.
I get so frustrated with those conversations.
Yeah, because you know what? I do get it. And there's times where I read something and I get pissed, and then I sit there and think about it and go, okay, I either get it or I don't. And there's times where I don't because I think it's sort of overblown. And those times are usually
times where it's overblown. I mean,
yes, and generally those are times where it's claiming that I don't get it.
Right.
It's claiming that you can't get it. That's
you're
the problem.
You're not capable of understanding it.
Or any disagreement means I don't get it.
Yeah. If you just say, well, what if we do this? What if we do it this way instead? Or, offer an alternative solution.
I would say the most recent time I've been accused of privilege was probably in the past week or two, surprisingly. Me. Which I'm not saying I'm a paragon or anything, but I've never really been accused of this. Was somebody on Facebook posted about the UN ban on female circumcision?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I remember this.
Did you see this when I posted, Jack?
Yeah.
Did you see the conversation? Yeah.
I did too.
And I was the first comment, and I said, well, next up is male circumcision, and then in parentheses, yeah, right. And of course, the next comment was, it's always about you, isn't it? And I was just like, okay, I really wasn't trying to diminish anything here. I was really just making a smart-ass comment because we all know that male circumcision is not going to go away anytime soon. And there, you know what? I have to say, I was happy that there was probably about 6 or 7 people that liked my comment, and every single one of them was female. So it kind of legitimized my position of I'm not trying to diminish anything here. But one certain person really took offense to what I said, and we kind of went back and forth for a while. And, I was totally taken aback by it. And actually, I was, honestly pissed off because they were trying to basically say that it's all about, I'm trying to make everything about the penis. And I was just, are you kidding me?
No, it's not. It's about children.
It's about children.
Do you know me at all?
Yeah. But, it was, well, this is you can't, their point was, and I could see where they're coming from, except for I just think they're wrong. Anytime female circumcision is brought up, there's always a male to step in and say, what about male circumcision? But reverse that.
Yeah.
If you were going to bring up male circumcision and somebody brought up female circumcision, I seriously doubt you're going to have people that are going to be like, it's always about you, isn't it? Me, which meant male.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite pissed about that because that couldn't be farther from the truth. And I don't know why it's necessarily seen as a distraction to bring it up, because yes, one is more heinous, but one is much more prevalent across the globe.
Right. But this is the issue of the privilege of when you are part of the majority, like even if it isn't the physical majority, like the numerical majority, which it won't be for too much longer, but still, as far as the power structure, it is still the majority. That you think of the villain in pop culture used to be the swarthy minority guy, and now it's a white dude in a business suit.
Yeah.
Like, the only people that you're culturally allowed to call the villain are the majority, and that really, it's gotta suck.
I'm not going to complain about it.
But that's the whole point, is that you're not allowed to complain about it.
No.
It doesn't matter how much it sucks, because you don't have any right to complain about it because you're the majority, which is the only reason that it's safe to paint you as the constant villain. But it's obviously it's unfair, and it's pretty fucked up. I remember, for example, being in college, and I got a bunch of hate emails that somehow they managed to find all the minorities in the liberal arts college.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that was actually a big deal.
Yeah, and it was a big deal
because it happened to so many people.
Somehow they were able to figure out.
He called himself the Patriot too, didn't he? There was
the Patriot, and then there was John Hitler. There were two of them.
Yeah. Jack, I don't know if you were aware of any of this. What was it, like 1998, 1999?
Something like that, yeah.
1998, 1999 at Penn State University, somebody from the satellite campus, right?
It originated at Temple University, actually, and somehow made its way to Penn State. But somebody was able to find out who in the liberal arts college was minorities, and all of the minorities in the College of Liberal Arts got this email. So they were able to figure out those particular demographics, but they didn't spell check it before they emailed it. so it was horrible. There were spelling and grammatical errors, and it was all about, like, you monkeys with our cheerleaders. And it was fucking hysterical.
That
and
sounds like 4chan level anonymous crap,
yeah.
Because that would require.
But I
would assume that would require getting access to admission records somewhere along the line.
Probably.
Yeah, but this is before the days of anonymous, like long before this is late 90s.
It's early hacker prank shit.
This was my first email address. And I remember as soon as I got these, I printed them out because I thought they were fucking hysterical. And every one of my white friends that I showed it to were fucking furious. And I'm like, guys, that's funny. And like Steve had this vein popping out of his forehead. I thought he was gonna have an aneurysm. I'm like, dude, laugh at it.
Because
every white person that I showed it to.
On some level, it's satire, right? I mean,
right.
It's making fun of the dumb racist, right?
Exactly.
I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet. It was a little too close to home for me.
But it was so bad. It was so poorly written, and the absurdity of it was so high that, and again, because I'm a black guy in college, which small percentage of people there, and we joke about how the other black guy, would walk by and he'd give me the nod, and he completely ignore Steve walking behind me.
Yeah.
But that was just part of the culture, and it wasn't something that I was even necessarily affected by. I'm sure that I could, if I sat on a shrink couch long enough, I'd find that there was some effect that I had. But basically, my immediate reaction was that it was fucking hysterical. But everybody that I showed it to that was not a minority was fucking horrified. I don't know what to do with that. But this is when I remember Steve coining the phrase "Anglo guilt."
Do you think that a certain percentage of those people were horrified, or just felt that they had to act horrified? Which gets a little meta, but
yeah, and it does. And I remember having this thought and this conversation about it, and it seemed pretty genuine to me. I don't think any of them, but then again, these are people who are friends with me, so they're automatically probably offended that this was directed toward me. They're personalizing it as something that was hateful that was sent to their friend.
Yeah.
So that may have been where a lot of the emotion came from, as opposed to just reading it in general about, minorities on campus who they might not necessarily have personal relationships with. This was the person saying, "I got this email. Here it is." And I'm generally a nice guy. I was probably even nicer then than I am now. So, but that's it is a good question, and again, it's the Anglo Guild, like
it's probably more prevalent in Catholics because they're trained for it.
Sure.
there is that, I feel the need to feel offended on your behalf
right
thing.
If it would have coincided with Ash Wednesday, that would have been clutch. I could have done like a little study.
Oh, that would be terrible. Oh, Adam, you have to do it. Next Ash Wednesday, you have to walk around and say, "You got a little blackface on you." Just like smear at it.
Oh my god.
Oh, that'd be so funny.
Oh shit.
As
Do
your
it to
point,
Jewish people on Yom Kippur. They have atonement.
your point earlier, Jack, about the people reacting to it because they think they should.
Mm-hmm.
I had a sociology class, race and ethnicity at Penn State, and we were to conduct an experiment where everybody had to take a photo of somebody that was supposed to be their significant other, and it was supposed to be of somebody of a very different background. So some people took pictures, interracially and like pretending to hug, or a couple back in the late '90s, a lot more people. It was a bigger deal then. Took pictures of like pretending to be like a same sex couple, and you were supposed to go home and present the photo of this is my new girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and record the reactions. And I definitely got that reaction of somebody being, how am I supposed to react to this? Like I had most of my friends. I ended up taking a picture with a African American girl. We were pretending to hug and kiss, and I took it home and showed it to friends and family, and most people were actually like, okay. But one friend of mine was like, oh, okay. And then when I broke the news of this is an experiment for my sociology class, then she freaked out. Like, did I react wrong? Well, how did I react? What did I say? What are you gonna say about me? Like, and I was like, you were fine. What is your problem? And that was like, I
did I do it right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I had a really good paper based on that reaction.
And I remember that's when I first kind of developed that philosophy of the worst thing you can call a white person in modern society is a racist.
In modern American society, yeah.
Yeah. The worst thing you can call a black man is a nigger. The worst thing you can call a white man is a racist.
Yeah, because honky and cracker kind of just bounce off.
Yeah, it doesn't really mean anything.
They just
being honest.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any real historical pain to it, so...
No.
Cracker kind of does, but not in any way that... It's still too hokey of a word,
And it's only if you know enough about it to know where it came from.
Yeah.
And if you know enough about it to know where it came from, then you're not a cracker.
I think it's down south.
Yeah.
If you're called a cracker down south, I think that's a lot worse.
And
honky is at this point, just like you were saying, like sort of a hokey word.
Right.
Yeah, it's got no
teeth.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have any good. I mean, it's got a K in it, but it doesn't really have any good sharp sound to it.
It's got a K.
You can't
it doesn't
scream it. It doesn't have any. You can't yell that word in anger and not feel kind of stupid.
Yeah, you won't make the record skip in the room when you say that.
Yeah.
There's nothing cathartic about it either. You call somebody a fucker, it's got some force behind it.
As I'm wont to do.
It's the phonetics of it. There's something
good
about it at all.
Let's move on here, but I do want to say I don't think we should bother going into it, but I'm going to leave it up here in the notes. How to Talk to Somebody About Privilege Who Doesn't Know What That is a really good article.
I did not read that one, actually.
Well, I'm just saying everybody should go and read that. At least take it in. I mean, maybe you don't agree with everything, but I thought it was a good article about how to approach somebody because, it's applicable to, a lot of our society. And in this case, religious privilege, you try to talk to somebody about religious privilege and they just immediately freak out. And so that only makes me just sit here and think, wow, there's a lot more than just religious privilege, obviously. I mean, that's. Do we want to talk about France? I don't know.
Nah. Even the elf on the shelf would have been funny if it would have been in the middle of what we were talking about.
I think finishing on Christmas is probably good.
Yeah.
Okay. We can go there.
And the elf on the shelf thing, I think it's interesting, especially, I don't know how many other people who read Practical Doubt.
Oh, yeah.
But Carly at Practical Doubt has been having more or less the same conversation on her Facebook all week.
Really?
About the elf on the shelf thing is kind of tied into the teaching your kids about Santa thing.
Okay.
Except you guys, the elf on the shelf thing came up when one of my friends was talking to their boss at work and said their boss was basically pressured by their kid to buy this elf on a shelf because in their class, apparently the mythology that's arisen is, if all the kids have an elf on a shelf, it gains like extra bonus powers or something.
Jeez.
That's
right.
creepy.
And there's this whole weird, crazy mythology built up around this stupid doll. And I mean, I can definitely understand the parental urge to want to have this kind of third-party thing to kind of shift the burden of punishment onto. That desire makes sense.
It's a scapegoat.
Yeah. But this elf on a shelf thing has kind of taken on this weird life of its own to a point where I find it problematic.
Yeah.
Especially since it's, buying something. Tell your kid about Krampus. Go right ahead. But elf on a shelf, I have a problem with.
That's beyond pale. Yeah, I had honestly never heard of Elf on a Shelf until just this past season. Like, it just within the past month is the first time I ever heard of Elf on a Shelf. And I actually had heard about it basically by people on Facebook posting pictures of this elf. And the very first picture I saw of an elf on a shelf was within the past 3 or 4 weeks. And someone had a picture of it on a pumpkin, like right after Thanksgiving. And it said something to the effect of, Buddy the elf is out and he's watching. And my reaction was, that fucking thing is creepy. Because I didn't know, that was the comment I made. I had no idea what it was. And then I started seeing other friends of mine posting pictures of the elf. And I'm like, this is a thing. I had no idea.
I heard about this years ago. And it was one of those things like somebody was explaining it with their kids and just that they moved it every night so that the elf was in a different place so that the kids would wake up in the morning and the game would be trying to figure out where the elf was. And it was very lighthearted and it didn't seem as, Orwellian.
I was going to say Big Brother.
Yeah, and it really is kind of a training for your being watched more than anything else.
Yeah.
Adam and I had this conversation the other night, actually, sort of, not, I wouldn't say in preparation for this, but I kind of brought it up. And we had a disagreement about whether or not it's good to kind of train, like kind of get your kid accustomed to being lied to. Well, right? I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. I mean,
pretty much.
Adam has a great point, I think, about not that you want to be lying to your kid or anything, but this isn't the only thing in life that they're going to come across where somebody is telling them something that isn't true. I mean, it happens all the time.
They have to develop those critical thinking skills in light of just trusting the person that they're getting the information from.
Right.
Like there has to be a point where they have to use their own faculties and say the information that you're giving me has to be false based on all the other things that I know about the world.
Because kids will start asking questions, and they'll start asking good questions.
Yeah.
And you could, sort of nurture that. I mean, it sounds almost creepy, because in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to bother.
Right.
But that's not the world we live in. So I
understand there is a certain critical thinking training aspect to it. It's like where I always say, I'll tell Dylan that, like, he'll just say, well, I want something. And I'll say, why? And kind of try and get him to at least, my line of thinking is, as soon as you can outwit me, you can get what you want.
You earned it.
Yeah. At that point, fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we kind of celebrate in my house too is if you can prove that you really thought about it, like, that's what gets rewarded. You don't even necessarily have to be right, but just the fact that you put some serious thought into it, and that you didn't just take what you were given, that you took what you know and you applied all that information to it, and you just thought about it. But I think particularly with the Santa myth, and this is one of those things that I plan on writing about. I've actually started writing about it, and who knows where it's going to go. But having this conversation with my son about what he believes in and what he doesn't believe in with regard to the Santa myth, leaving religion out of it. But it was all very empirical as far as, like, I believe in Santa Claus because I see him. Like I just saw him last week. I went to the school thing. We had the, like we had the
I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah. And he's just like, like I sat on the dude's lap and I talked to him. So, like, of course I believe in him.
The fuck do you mean he doesn't exist?
Right.
Yeah.
But like, it was so logical that I kind of like, all right.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. Based on the information you have.
Right. And we're talking about, we had just seen Rise of the Guardians, which is a brilliant fucking movie. And my son just happened to have lost a tooth that morning. So it's like, oh, well, I put my tooth under the pillow and the tooth fairy gives me money. So, like, all right, like, I wake up in the morning on Easter Sunday and there's Easter eggs in my backyard. Like, these things must be real, because there's evidence of them. But I don't believe in Jack Frost because, like, I know what frost is. Frost is just water getting cold, and, like, because he knows about clouds and condensation and that kind of stuff. So he's like, well, there's science behind that. So I don't believe in Jack Frost.
Like, Adam was telling me that story the other night, and I was like, I'm so proud of you, boy.
I actually have a clip that will figure into this discussion and is seasonally timely.
All right, then.
Excellent.
Have you ever seen The Hogfather?
Mm-mm.
No.
No? Okay, The Hogfather is a Terry Pratchett book where the characters are a little different, takes place in another world, blah, blah, blah. But essentially, Santa has a problem, and so Death takes over his duties for the night. And it ends with this wonderful speech by Death, which is what we're going to listen to.
Tell me.
What would have happened if you hadn't saved him?
Yes.
The sun would not have risen.
Then what would have happened?
A mere ball of flaming gas would have illuminated the world.
All right, I'm not stupid. You're saying that humans need fantasies to make life bearable?
No. Humans need fantasy to be human. To be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape.
With tooth fairies, hogfathers.
Yes. As practice, you have to start out learning to believe the little lies.
So we can believe the big ones?
Yes. Justice, mercy, duty, that sort of thing.
They're not the same at all.
You think so? Then take the universe and grind it down to the finest powder and sieve it through the finest sieve, and then show me one atom of justice, one molecule of mercy. And yet, you try to act as if there is some ideal order in the world, as if there is some rightness in the universe by which it may be judged.
But people have got to believe that. What's the point?
You need to believe in things that aren't true. How else can they become?
Whoa. Reminds me of a Zay Frank post where he's talking about, as a child pretending that that the universe is, or rather pretending that the world follows all of these rules, and then as an adult pretending that those rules actually exist.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of good points in there.
Yeah. Believe the small lies so that you can believe the bigger ones.
Well,
But
yeah, you kind
it's
of.
all about authority.
Yeah, I think on some level, for the most, I don't know if it's just me, but take a very small sample poll. But like, at the point that you realized that Santa wasn't real, what was the gap of time between when you realized it and when you actually told your parents?
I waited until that Christmas was over.
Yeah, exactly. And I think every kid does.
Any smart kid.
Right.
Because somewhere in your head, you know that once that game is up, the presents aren't going to be as cool.
Yeah. Something is going to change fundamentally in the whole structure of the system. I had a little bit of help. My sister is the one who confirmed for me that there was actually no Santa Claus, and then immediately felt guilty about it. So she's like, "All right, look, as long as they think that you believe, you'll get more presents." Which is really her way of getting out of getting in trouble for telling me about it or for confirming it. But it worked. I mean, which actually probably didn't work. Finances being the way they are, Christmas is really more about what you can afford than about what your kid believes. But
Yeah. Yeah, I figured it out when I caught my dad carrying stuff down from the attic.
Yeah,
Like a little who.
I actually wrote a post about this. I was sent back to my house from my grandmother's house, which is right next door. Run over to the house and grab this thing. Your kid's old enough to go and get something, and his legs are new. So you're like, yeah, Adam, go get that thing. So who knows what it was that I was going to get? And I stumbled into the closet and I found Christmas presents, and I was like, I fucking knew it. I was so proud of myself. There was no like anger or that I was lied to or any of that kind of outrage that people talk about. I wasn't upset. I didn't cry. I was like, I fucking knew it.
My thing for me was it was this weird. It was you watch all the Christmas cartoons and stuff, and they show Santa's workshop with the elves, and they're making little dolls and wooden toys and stuff, and I'm like, I'm getting Transformers. He does not have this kind of production set up. There is just no way. He's making all this stuff that they sell at the stores.
Yeah. My son asked me the other day, does he make everything or does he buy some stuff? And I was like, dude, I don't know.
I don't have an answer for that. He's got license agreements.
Yeah. Copyright infringements and, how did he get around the whole Disney thing?
Copyright doesn't apply at the North Pole. It's non-territorial.
I suppose, yeah. But with Disney taking over Marvel, and then then Star Wars after that, it's really got to fuck up things at the workshop.
There's a rumor that Disney's going to make a bid for Hasbro. If Disney buys Hasbro too, they will own my entire childhood, like everything. Marvel, Star Wars, then they'll own G.I. Joe and Transformers too. Shit,
it's all over. This is what the Lions are talking about, man.
Disney owning everything.
It's all coming down.
It'd be horrible. But incidentally, this Hogfather, it's a BBC TV miniseries. It's not really a miniseries. It's 2 hour-and-a-half movies.
That's how the BBC goes.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. There's so much of it that's so funny. They have this one bit where Death and his assistant are playing Santa Claus, and they're at a poorhouse. And the guy's like, well, this kid asked for this and this. And the guy's like, yeah, but they get an apple and this little wooden thing. It's like, why? Well, it's the socioeconomics of it. Look, what good is a god that gives you everything you want? And Death says, well, you've got me there. It's a great, great book.
I'm gonna have to check this out.
And the movie is well worth it. It's on the Netflix. If you have a Netflix account, I highly recommend you check it out this holiday season.
As far as the Elf on the Shelf, I don't know. There's really much else to say to it other than just that it's fucking creepy.
It's creepy, and I don't know if it's really. I don't know. I'm torn. I like the idea of Christmas fun, but the Elf on the Shelf thing is a little too Big Brother for me.
Yeah, it's just spies for Santa.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in our modern culture, maybe there's a place for that as far as early training for living in a society where you're always being watched. But
yeah, but that's new. I mean, I don't think that society completely exists yet. So we're preparing them for something.
Like London has cameras fucking everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
It does happen. It doesn't happen in the U.S. because no one's ready to pay the taxes to give the police that kind of infrastructure. And
because we'll use our Second Amendment rights to shoot all the cameras if we can.
Yeah, but that's my one. I don't know if it's really something, I want my kid to have me time where no one's watching.
That shit is important. Like,
so.
It's part of our, one of the great failings of our culture is that we have to fill every second with some kind of stimuli externally.
Yeah.
Like, my son will occasionally just sit on the couch and look out the window. And if I happen to come across him sitting on the couch and staring out the window, I turn around and I walk back out of the room and I leave him the fuck alone. And I let him daydream for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, to me, it's one of the best things that I can do for the kid. Like, you have this, and we're just as guilty of it. When I have a spare minute, I'm I have my nose in my iPhone. But just the being comfortable in your own skin, and that's to just be alone, be by yourself, being inside of your own head for a couple minutes before something external comes and disrupts all of it. Like, that's going to get harder and harder to do as time goes on. And it's going to disappear if we don't value it.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think the Elf on the Shelf contributes to that.
No, not at all. No,
and in some respects, the Santa thing doesn't. But the Santa thing, you always figured on some level, well, he can't watch it. It was kind of the same thing in my brain that made the omnipresent God part never make sense either.
He can't be everywhere at once.
He can't be watching. Someone has to. My mom has to be telling him or something.
Right. My mother ran a daycare.
See it.
My mother ran a daycare for years, and when the kids would be bad, she would walk into there and just hold the phone up, and then she would be like, "You hear that, Santa?" And they'd all be like,
"Yeah,
fine." And she'd be like, "Oh, okay, they're better now. Never mind. I'll talk to you later." And she'd hang up the phone. But that's the thing is, like, but with you can use that on children because it's really only works for about 2 months out of the year. You tell your kid in July that Santa's watching, they're like, yeah, whatever. Not time to make up that shit. I can fix it between now and December. It only really works for that 2 month period where Christmas is near, when they start seeing the the decorations and things like that. That's the only time that it really works.
So we should really be using the Santa methods to teach them about credits and debits.
Right, exactly. Checks and balances.
As long as it's a net gain, you're okay.
Right. Stay in the black. That's really what it's all about.
I will say that I guess moving it around, there's something to be said for giving the impression to your kid that, the world doesn't just go away when they're asleep.
Yeah.
But if they haven't figured that out by 4 or 5, there's kind of an issue. That's probably fine around, 2.5, 3.
Yeah. See, I would be fucking terrified to know that when I went to sleep, this little doll came to life and went someplace else in my house. Like, it was walking around. Was it watching me? You know what I mean? Like,
that is a little creepy. They did this one Snuggle Bear commercial in the 90s that I will never forget because it was like this. They had released some new springtime scent or whatever. And it just shows this field, and it pans back, and it's the Snuggle Bear, and he turns to look toward the camera, and he just says, "Breathe deep." And from that moment on, my perpetual image of the Snuggle Bear in my head is him holding a chloroform rag over some kid's head. And that thing is way creepier than Chucky, as far as I'm concerned.
Breathe deep. Oh, it's the little Ratzinger bear.
Jesus.
A Catholic bear has come to visit you. Oh man, that's great. Catholic bear. I got to make that show happen. It would just guilt people into shit.
So do we care about the Mayan apocalypse? That isn't actually Mayan or an apocalypse.
Well, it's Mayan. It's just not an apocalypse.
Yeah.
No, we don't. It's not going to happen, people. End of story.
I actually work with someone who is like not necessarily convinced that the world is going to end, but she's afraid that it might.
Have you asked to borrow her credit card?
I have made that joke to her before, and she's just like, I don't know, but there's just so much shit, and I was just like, I've gone off in these little mini tirades, and I've started to recognize that people have actually prompted me just so that they can hear a tirade on 2012. I recognize that on some level I'm being manipulated.
Somebody made a just a JPEG for the internet, and it just said 12/21/12, once in a millennium, and I'm like, every date is once in a millennium. That's how they work.
Yeah, right.
You see that Batman comic I posted? It's 12. Robin's saying it's 12/12, and Batman slaps him halfway through the conversation. Shut up. That drove me nuts the other day. The 12/12/12 crap.
I actually put something on Facebook about it, like a couple of days before, because I saw it and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's not gonna, we're not gonna have sequential dates in our lifetime again for like another 1,000 years. And then like it suddenly became a thing, and I was like, oh God, really? Like it was just one of those quirky little, like it's illegal to carry a pair of pliers in your back pocket in Pennsylvania. Like it was one of those little random factoid things that was just supposed to be interesting. I didn't think it was going to be a thing.
What makes them think it's for another 1,000 years?
Oh, because we won't have another sequential date until 3001.
That's not true. Not if we're only using the last 2 digits of the year. It'll happen in 2112.
Oh yeah, that's true. Look at that.
Math.
I think, yes. I was thinking the last thing I read that it wasn't until January 1st of 3001.
Yeah, no,
that
it'll be 2101.
Well, right there.
It happens every century to all the dates. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Unless we change our calendars.
Which actually reminds me of the 2012 argument where someone was saying that, like, our galaxy is supposed to align with the center of our solar system.
The center of the universe.
Right. No,
the center of the universe, which is great.
No, our solar system would align with the center of the galaxy, and I was like, yeah. And I saw like a video from Neil deGrasse Tyson about this, and it's just like, our solar system aligns with the center of the galaxy
all the time.
First of every year.
Yeah.
Without fail. As a matter of fact,
there's always a planet in alignment somewhere. Right.
And it was actually
better. If you're just trying to line up 2 planets, they're always aligned depending on how you're looking at it.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like it's not like there's any kind of like up or down in space. It's just that
exactly. I think that 3-dimensional thinking really bugs people out.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
There are entire scores of people who really think that if you fly in a straight line, right, you're going to pass Jupiter, and then if you keep flying, you're going to pass Saturn. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like no matter what direction you go in,
they're all lined up like a nice little map.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Gentlemen,
because what does a year mean?
My phone's going to die like any second.
No worries. Okay, well, let's do a quick sign off then.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, it's been great. We had a lot of fun tonight. As always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you can get a hold of us, lefthemispheres@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, @lefthemispheres. Thanks, everybody. Have a Merry Christmas.
And a
happy holidays.
I'm going to own Christmas pretty soon.
It's great. I don't care.
Okay, kids, settle down. It's story time. I said settle down! That's better. 'Twas the night before Pope's Day, and all through the goat, the croutons were twirling like tits on a boat. The scarves of young bellhops were basted in phlegm in the hopes that Tom Brokaw would grow on a stem. The milkman was throbbing and glaring at clamps, while erstwhile gophers molested his lamps. And I and my carrot that made me lick spheres were spanking a nun underwater at Sears. When out in the beef hole a Frenchman was squirted, and clanged with such force that my nipples inverted. With ponies and catheters chained to my nose, I neutered a biscuit and swallowed my clothes. The clams and my waitress demanded more towels, as poodle-clad jockeys read porn scripts to owls. And there, on the perfectly boneless horizon, a vomiting duck made me switch to Verizon. The voice of my thermostat cut through the night like a fat Presbyterian licking a kite. It promised me hampers of mayonnaise and sorrow, and belched like a barnacle baptized by Charo. On kiwis, on forklifts, on poultry and nipples, on youpers, on poopers, on commies and cripples, to the nostril of glee, to the concubine planet, now Marmaduke, 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 damn it! As elk-flavored media gargled in pain like a murderous thermos of pork in the rain. And the constable pudding that lived in my basement burst forth manifestos on bovine replacement. And then, like the screech of a bucket of toast, when a rectal kaleidoscope comes in the post, a warm feathered hat made of anger and meat threw a cat through my face and glued fame to my feet. The porcelain lullabies bled through the cheese, as fiberglass embryos marched by in threes, gelatinous oven mitts nibbled my back like toenails and mayonnaise mixed in a sack. Bouquets of gay trapezoids buttered a cop, while Spaniards and circuitry bred in a mop. And the thunderous anthem of blackheads in June destroyed mice with a Q-tip that pooped in your spoon. As pompadour polishers piddled a prayer and sodomy nuggets sewed poems to a bear, electric aristocrats rendered in fleece all the vestibule wrestling pogo police. With a cuddly anvil held tight to my butt, I deflated a taco and called it a slut. Parmesan poodle plot puckered in pain, like a puddle-clad henwife ingesting a train. Testicular tomahawks burned through the beans as the omelet capacitors strangled their spleens, because spaying a turnip may tickle a tank, but the sex you can bake is the milk you can spank. A barnacle cocktail ate birds in a maze as the diaper repairman prescribed Dijonnaise, but I heard him exclaim as he gargled his arm, "I farm where I romp, and I romp where I farm!" Merry Christmas.